Hello, 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 everybody. So, what a pleasure to be here. And I just have to take a quick second. And this is so, Andrea and I spoke a few days ago, but we just hopped straight into the conversation. But I don't think I ever pronounced my name properly for you. It's Aisha, and that's fine. I get so many variations of my name. But I am so honored and excited. And who is ready for a treat tonight? Can I just I know that this is live and we're recording, and so many of you are going to probably be watching this replay. But for those who are here live, who is ready for a treat tonight? Can I just get some love in the chat? There we go, there we go, there we go. So tonight it is truly my pleasure to speak to you about something that is so near and dear to my heart, and that is the power of storytelling. And, as Andrea mentioned to you, my background is very, very diverse. And I'm going to share a little bit of my background um, that extends a little bit beyond just the cliff notes and the perfect curated, polished bio that I share officially. So before I get started, can I just can somebody, at least one person, give me permission to keep it real so that I can really take you all behind closed doors tonight? I just need one person to tell me, go ahead, keep it real with me tonight. Or if you want the polished and politically correct version, we can do that as well. Tell me which one you all want tonight. Keep it real. Listen, I was hoping that you would say that. So, I am originally from the Bahamas. I live in the United States in New Orleans right now with my family, with my husband, and our four children. But I didn't start off this way. I actually started off in Nassau, Bahamas, which is a very small island for those of you who are from the Bahamas. And I grew up originally having plans to be an actress of all things. Now, this dream of mine led me into the world of beauty pageants and modeling. And when, that didn't quite lead me to the path that I expected, I did a complete shift and change. And I found myself in the United States Army, where I served in the US Army for 2 years. And then I said, listen, I'm going to go out, I'm going to get a career, I'm going to finish university. And guess what I became of all things? A CPA, a certified public accountant. And I worked that job. I poured my heart into it. I worked around the world, in the United States, in the Bahamas. I worked in England. I worked in Ireland. And then after 10 years of doing public accounting, I moved into industry, into the banking field, because I really wanted to help people with their money and with their finances. And I figured, what better way to do that than actually going and working in a bank? And after about 10 years of doing that as the CFO of one of the largest banks in the Bahamas, I decided to transition into a semi-government role as the Deputy Executive Director of the Securities Commission. And for those of you who are here, how it is when the winds of change start to blow in your life, and they definitely started to blow in mine. And I found myself at a crossroads where I was facing a personal situation, and I had the decision, do I move to the left or do I stay where I am? And I decided to move, and I literally moved to the United States, where I came here for university and picked up my mom, who was going through some health challenges at the time, and came here and started a whole brand new life, a new career, a new business. I stepped away from the corporate world into full-time entrepreneurship, sharing my story and helping other impact-driven, purpose-seeking, mission-oriented leaders to share their stories as well. So it is truly an honor to be here. And when I tell you that stories have changed my life, I am going to share with you the power of your story so that you too can step into the change agent, into the truly effective leader that we're all seeking to be. That's why we're here, right? So I do have a presentation that we're going to run through, and these slides are going to be available to you. My plan is to do the teaching and then to open up for some Q&A. So any questions that you may have, any comments that you may have, you can just please pop them into the chat. And once I have gotten through my teaching portion, I will address all of them, and then anyone can be free to raise their hands and we can have a further chat. Okay? But my promise to you is that this is going to be a session where you leave changed, where the whole concept of storytelling, storytelling is like the buzzword nowadays, where we really kind of take it down, like off of the shelf and bring it home in a way that is very practical and very applicable, and how you can actually start to use this immediately to make a difference in your life and in the lives of people that are around you. So let us get started. So we went through this introduction. I am Aisha Jackson, and I'm a CPA. I'm a former Fortune Global 500 CFO. I'm a U.S. Army veteran and the founder of Universal Impact Press. So let's make sure my tech is going. So before we get started, I want us to really get clear about what it is that we're doing here. And this is one of the things that when I started my business, I had to really learn, coming from a corporate background in operations and financial oversight. Business was totally different for me because you're selling something. You have to really appeal to what people want and they desire, not just what they need. It's so easy to sit behind a desk, and especially if you're in an operational mode, or as many of you here are in the project management field, or some type of operational capacity where we're telling people what they need to be doing. And that can come with a lot of friction. Am I right or am I right? But what it took me to come out of the corporate arena and into my own business is to really understand, what are we actually doing? So, for example, people who are in the life insurance business, what are they actually doing? Are they selling policies, or are they selling comfort and peace of mind and security? If you are just trying to sell the technical thing without really truly understanding what is this, you're going to be fighting an uphill battle. With my red lipstick, what are they selling? Just lipstick? Or are you selling vibrancy and just a very polished look? When you tap into what is it that we're actually doing here, you are already so much more miles ahead of where you even think that you may be, because you have the right focus. So right now, this is what I want us to do. Let's just strip away all of the certifications, the frameworks, the sprints, the dashboards. What exactly are we doing when we manage anything? Now you're here, you're looking at the slides. The answer is here on the slides. This is not trying to like overload your brains right now to have you to think of something, but it is to highlight. We are trying to move something from where it is to where it needs to be. Does everybody agree with this? We're trying to move something from where it is to where we need it to be. So really, what is project management? What is management? What is team performance? What is people leadership? We're trying to create change. You're changing. And that, my friends, is where the heart of our matter is. Because guess what? Change is uncomfortable. Nobody likes change. Nobody wants change. How many people here just run and dive into change? Probably none of us would really truthfully raise our hands, right? Change is uncomfortable. So when we get into the project management space, the people leadership space. We are working against human nature. We're working against human psychology. Change is uncomfortable. We are attempting to create change, and change is uncomfortable. Can somebody please write in the chat for me? Change is uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable. This is the crucible of what we are building on tonight. So, when we look at change, you really have two pathways to get there. Okay? You're going to go the hard way or the easy way. And this is what I tell my 16-year-old son all the time. We could do this the hard way or we could do this the easy way. I even tell my husband this at times. We could do this the hard way or the easy way. Now, as leaders and change agents, which is truly what we are, whose responsibility is it to do it the hard way or the easy way? We want to guide people along the easy way. The hard way is compliance. And we are all so familiar with this. The clearer communication, tighter timelines, better enforcement, more follow-up. Everybody here who is listening to the sound of my voice, whether you're live or watching the replay 10 years from now, when this amazing community is celebrating their 50th anniversary, which we are just 1 month shy of each other's 5-year anniversary, so we're the same age, is you can all raise your hands and say, that is the hard way. It is heavy, where it's like we feel like we're chasing behind people with a stick. We are like, and I used to always use this example before George Floyd, like you have to just keep your foot on people's necks. As politically incorrect as that is how heavy compliance feels. We've all been there. We probably are there. But what is an easier way? Connection. What is connection? When you have belief, there's trust, there's shared experience, and people are moving with you. Connection is light. Compliance is not connection. Compliance is heavy. Connection is light. Who wants to do things the hard way? Or who would prefer to do it the easier way? Now, that's a question I'm going to already assume the answer of, because why would we choose to keep doing things the hard way? So, your story in a nutshell is like a spoonful of sugar. Change is medicine. Nobody comes in making changes just for the sake of making changes, right? Normally, we're making change because it's needed, it's required. We're either trying to be proactive or we're making a necessary change that should have been made long ago, but now it's like, hey, this is a critical point in time where it must be made. But change is like medicine. It's necessary, yes, but it's often bitter and very rarely welcomed and heavily pushed against. We have all been there in organizations, whether it's project management within our organizations. Change is one of the hardest things to navigate, regardless of how necessary that it is. But guess what? Your story is like the spoonful of sugar. Now, I may be dating myself right now, and I have no problem of saying I am going to be 48 when my birthday rolls around, which is in the next 6 weeks. And I always tell people, do not let this beautiful baby face fool you. But I've been through a lot, and I have experienced quite a bit. Now, back in the day when I used to watch Mary Poppins, just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. Your story and sharing your story can be that spoonful of sugar. Now, it's not distracting from the medicine, it's helping it go down. At the end of the day, listen, the purpose of story in leadership is not just about inspiration. It's about like just oiling the whole process, making it lubricated. It can reduce the friction that is going to be there when you ask people to change. Remember, we have compliance or connection, the hard way or the easy way. The easy way, the light way, is to build connection. Okay? How can we do this? Through our story. So I have no excuses. I never apologize for this. Listen, I'm a numbers person. I'm a frameworks person. I am a Bible person. I'm a Jesus girl. I look for the proven frameworks and the straightforward way. So I know that seven is the spiritual number of completion. So anytime I am looking for a framework, I am like, where are the seven core elements? And they never ever fail to appear. I also look for what is something that I can have in my mind as a framework and an anchor that I can apply to various situations. And this is how I have come up with my signature connection equation. What is this? Now, storytelling is not a new thing. You all have probably heard about different storytelling frameworks. Listen, I'm in the business of helping people share their stories and write books. And I don't even know all of the storytelling frameworks. There's just so many, right? There's so many that come up, and it's like, what do I use? When do I use the hero's journey? Problem, agitate, solve, just all of these things. It can get so convoluted when in the moment. And what is our objective when we want to use our story specifically to build a connection? People talk about the hero's journey. Okay, people use that in a lot of movies. Well, we're not making a movie. We want people to connect with us so that we can have an easier time of creating these changes, right? So, if you to share your story in a way that is going to help you to connect with the people that you need to have on board to help make that change come to life. These are the seven core elements that you want to follow to make your story land. Okay? So, the first one is your circumstances. What are the circumstances? Okay, what's going on with some of the backstory? This doesn't mean the total who, what, when, where, why, how. I always say focus on the meat, leave out the bones. The next thing is your crown. What is the crown? What is that crowning achievement? What is that final glory moment? In other words, what are the goals that we're working towards? What is that end point? What is that moment when the beauty queen gets crowned? When the athlete gets their gold medal? When, hey, this thing is finished, this project is finished, and life is just so much better. What is the crown? The next part is what are the challenges? What stood in the way? What did you have to overcome? What tried to take you out? There's the common saying, life is lifing. What exactly does that mean? What are some of those things? What does that look like? Another key element that a lot of people miss out is the cheerleaders. Who are those people supporting you? It could even be the still small voice within that's supporting you. It could even be the voice of my grandmother popped into my head and was like, don't you dare touch that hot stove or something. Who were the cheerleaders? The other critical part of this equation is your conviction. What shifted inside? What in you where you were like, oh, this is where I take a stand in the ground. This is where my mind locked in. This is where I said I'm not gonna repay wrong with wrong, or this is where I'm going to stand within something that I know. And then you want to share the crossover, that ending point where, hey, whether you achieve the crown or not, and if you achieve the crown, this is where you want to actually talk about that. But this is where you say how my life was never the same. Something inside of me changed. And these six elements in your story will lead to connection. Okay? If any element is missing, your story is probably not going to be as robust as it needs to, and it's not going to land. When all are present and intentional, connection is the result. So, one of the things that I would just like to say right now is that when we talk about story, it doesn't have to be some big, huge, grand, like, dramatic thing that happens. It can be an everyday occurrence. The point is, you want to share your story in your workplace, even in personal situations. Anytime you want to build a connection so that you can be effective in the performance of your team. That could be your team at home, that could be your family, that could be at the workplace, that could be at church, that could be with a community, that could be with a volunteer. How is it that you want to connect with either a body of people or particular individuals within that particular body? These are the six elements that as you start to say a story, you want to just kind of run through it mentally to say, am I checking off all of the boxes? Okay? So let's use this in real time. And I am going to share a story with you right off of the cuff of actually something that happened. Let me take a look at my phone. 2 hours ago. Okay? 2 hours ago. Because I want to show you in real time how this can be applied and how it doesn't have to be some, you know, huge dramatic incident that took place in your life or some huge defining factor where you can use real life everyday examples. Okay? So we always want to start with the end in mind. What is the end in mind? We want to connect. So right now, I am here. I am talking to this body, a group of people. I'm not just speaking to you all one-on-one. And I want to connect with you in a particular way. Now, what is the way that I would like to connect to all of you with, right? From the introductions that everybody gave, you all are here, you're a part of this community or you're interested in this community because you're involved in a project management field. But it also seems like a lot of you all are either entrepreneurs or you have some type of entrepreneurial aspect that's going on, right? So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, what is the type of connection that I would like to really have with this body right now? What is the trust? We're not working together for a particular goal, but I would like for you to listen to me and take on some of these things that I am saying. So my whole aim for a connection is to really use as an example how powerful storytelling can be. So I'm going to take this from the entrepreneurial route. As entrepreneurs, we all have to juggle a whole lot, have to deal with a lot of unexpected things, but at the same time, we have commitments that we have to show up for regardless, right? So let's use a story about how can we still maintain our core of calm, and show up for our commitments, even in the midst of things just going haywire. Would that be a good connection point to talk about a core of calm to this group? Yes, it would be. So let's share the story. Circumstances. earlier today, just about 2 hours ago, I pulled up to my son's school to pick him up, and I'm like looking at the watch and looking outside. He is not there. Now, I have a session to attend, this very session right now, that's happening an hour and a half later, and I'm about 30 minutes away from home. So, of all of the days that I need him to not be late to come out of school, it needs to not be today. Yet here it is, and he's late. So a few minutes after, I'm just like, okay, woosah, before I get out of the car with my 3-year-old and 5-year-olds to go and look for him, I see him walking breathlessly out of breath towards the car. Mom, I can't find my backpack. I think somebody took my backpack. At that moment, I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. Not to him, right? But just in general, because of all of the days. Why didn't this happen yesterday or tomorrow? Why today of all days? But these are the circumstances. I'm in a time crunch. I have to be someplace. I have a commitment. But now look at the situation that's going on with my child. What is the crown? I want to be on time. I want to be calm and collected. I would have loved to have time to go over my presentation one final time. The crown is to have such a wonderful and awe-inspiring presentation that I am just flawless in and not like scrambling because now it's like I have to figure out what we're going to do with this backpack and he has two projects due and all of that stuff. What am I after? Showing up to my commitments with the excellence. This is my brand that's on display right now. Okay. We all know that when something is going on with us mentally, how much of a distraction that can be. My crown was to show up in my full glory. Now, what are the challenges? The unexpected event that happened. The unexpected event that had no conclusion. He's walking around, going to the gym, going to the school secretary, and this and the next thing, and time is just ticking. Now, I'm not just only at this point worrying about getting home. I'm very concerned about this missing backpack because now we're gonna have to try to find a workaround for him to still get his work done, right? So there are challenges. Now, what were the cheerleaders in this situation? The still small voice within. Now, I had to go and look for them because one of my anchoring things, and this is why it's so important to have anchors in your life, is that number one, for me, an anchoring just statement, it comes from scripture, is that I have never seen the righteous forsaken nor their children beg for bread. So I strive whenever I feel those gremlins starting to rise. I am like, Lord, what is the righteous thing to do? Because you promised me that if I am righteous, I will not be forsaken and my children will not beg for bread. Now, I have 3 children, so I need to give them all of the carry forward grace that I can. And I said, if all things work for my good, show me how this is a good thing. And I said to myself, life is going to happen. Imagine how flustered he is right now. He's 16 years old, a sophomore, has 2 more years of school. Thank goodness this is happening while he's still under your wing, so you can show him in real time what it is to not fret and to not worry, and that, hey, things happen. Let's deal with it in a moment and keep moving forward. Thank goodness that this is a teaching moment for him and for you. Those were the cheerleaders. And I felt that still small voice rise up. It's going to be okay. You're fine. This is not the worst thing. You're still going to be on time. You've already prepped. You're fine. It's going to be fine. Those cheerleaders were there to remind me that all is well. All is well. Now, what was the conviction that shifted inside of me? The conviction that shifted inside of me was this is who I'm called to be. Entrepreneurship is not a 9 to 5. Motherhood is not a 9 to 5. Things are going to happen. They are going to happen. But when you are built to carry a particular mantle, life is going to test you. And guess what? You have the choice whether you are going to pass the test or not. No test is ever going to come that you're not already equipped to be able to pass. And I decided that I was going to pass the test with an A. And that's what I said to myself. That was the conviction. My conviction was that the Lord will never put anything on me that is too much to bear. And if I know that I'm called into this business, I know that I'm called to these children, I know that I am called to be here presenting tonight, then this was a part of the plan. And this was a test. And even if it was a temptation, but it was a test, and I choose to pass this test with an A. And what is the crossover? What permanently shifted? Now, this was not a permanent shift that was not in place before, but it even strengthened my conviction as I bundled up my son. I told him, we gotta go, we gotta head on home. And I preached down to him in that car, and I was like, things are gonna happen, but you hold your head and you find your rock to stand on, and it's going to be okay. And my whole three children got a sermon inside of the car driving home tonight. Okay? So, and I showed up here. I would have loved to join the call 15 minutes ahead of time, but I got in about 3 minutes ahead instead of 15 as I intended to. And guess what? I'm still here. Now, none of you all would have known, wow, she had a frazzling experience right before because of my conviction. And I crossed over into a point where I made the decision that I would not be shaken because this is the journey that I've said yes to as a mother, as an entrepreneur. So, me sharing this story, imagine me sharing this story when things are collapsing around. You're dealing with a project, you're dealing with something in your organization, and things just aren't going the way that they should be. And then, just at that moment where it's like, okay, I have this opportunity, or I have something where my name is on the line, my reputation is on the line, then something just comes out of the blue and just knocks you off of your feet. This is where this story is building connection. So, this is how a real life on the spot example of how you can use these elements in any particular setting. And a story doesn't have to be some big grand gesture of, oh, that time I met my husband for the first time, or, something grand. If you think about it, every day you probably have at least 5 to 6 stories of the things that you have gone through where you can use them to connect with people. You can use them to connect with people. And connection is the easy way to change. Compliance is the hard and the heavy way to change. When we're in the business of change, we want to go that easy way. We want to go the way of our story. Okay? So we also have 3 that really matter the most. The crown, which is what you are after, the challenges, and then also we have to have the end result. What is that connection? Now, ultimately, you cannot really, you don't have total control over what that connection will be. You have control over the elements that go into it. A lot of times people talk about the circumstances, they talk about the challenges, they may even talk about the conviction and the cheerleaders, but they're not really clear about what the crown is. What makes this so devastating if this thing doesn't work out? Also, the challenges are very, very important. These are where you are going to demonstrate that, hey, I know what it is to walk in your shoes. I may not have been in your particular shoes, but I know what this feels like. Okay? So if you miss the crown, it's like this story has no point. What's the point? If you're missing the challenges, then your story it's shallow, right? It's like, oh, I just floated off and it was fine. You're missing connection, then if you don't have connection, you're in compliance, and that is in the heavy land of trying to make a change happen. Now, I also want to just touch on very briefly three types of stories that are guaranteed to backfire. Once again, storytelling is not new. The concept of storytelling is not new as a concept, and just people sharing their stories, period, is not new. It's just a part of human behavior. Number one is the trauma dump. If you were sharing an open wound, listen, all it does is make people feel uncomfortable. You know, if I started to come on here and man, my son is 16 and I am always having to be behind him, and why did he even have his bag and this thing and the next thing? Listen, y'all would be like, I didn't sign up to hear all of this. We do not want to just have a trauma dump, okay? The other thing is like a humble brag, where it's like you could just feel someone like angling you like from a side angle. And listen, my husband is in sales, car sales at that. And I can always be like, listen, don't come with the sales pitch right now. You know, you can smell it a mile away, where it's like people are trying to like wrap a flex or an angle inside of a story. That does not work. Okay? Just like we don't want to be overly vulnerable, we don't want to be overly um, bragging or trying to flex. People will see through that instantly. And that does not build connection. It builds distance. The other thing is the irrelevant epic, where people are droning on and on and on, and with this detailed story and all of these details that have nothing to do with the moment. If it doesn't serve your room, it's wasting time. And the minute you start wasting somebody's time, you could forget about the connection and their trust. They will run from you. If they hear your name, they will run. If they see you coming, they are going to run. And that is not what we want, okay? So these are the things to be very, very aware of the three types of stories that will definitely backfire. There's a saying. How many of you have heard the saying, facts tell and stories sell? Everybody's heard that saying? And somebody just raised their hand. Facts tell, stories sell. Well, here's the part that I want you to always remember. Some stories repel, okay? Not all stories sell. Some of them repel. So we really, really want to be very, very mindful of that. Now, one of the signature things that I do in just about every time that I present, every book that I write, every book that I help my clients to write, I am grounded in reality. Okay? Listen, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a business owner, I am an immigrant in the United States, I have a plate full of things. The point that I'm saying is, so do you. You each have your own handful of things that you're juggling. The point that I'm making in all of this is, we're not here to be wasting time with impractical things that sound good but are just totally not applicable because it's not going to work in your story. What does that mean? Everything has elephants in the room. You go into one of my books, you're probably going to find a chapter called Elephants in the Room. Okay? This is such a critical part of teaching and reaching and communicating that is really, really going to help you to make an impact and to make, what's our magic word here? Change. You got to deal with the elephants in the room. So, what are our elephants in the room right now as it relates to story? When you've sat here, you've listened to all of this, you have the equation of how to make of how to make connection, your circumstances, your crown, your challenges, your cheerleaders, your conviction, the crossover. Okay, Aisha, okay, I'm hearing you. But now what? You have all of this information that's been shared with you. But guess what? You're still sitting in the same clothes that you started off sitting in. Tomorrow, you're going to go back to the same situation. And now I'm asking you to change how it is that you're dealing with people. So you may be saying to yourself, I don't know if this will work for me. I already have a rapport with people of how I communicate. Is this too late for me? Listen, leadership is not static. Change begins with us. It begins with us. Communication can and it should evolve. You don't have to reinvent yourself. You can refine. Start small. Start where you can. Start with what you have. Another thing that you may be thinking, is this going to make me look weak? Do I have to share? Like, is this going to make me look frazzled? Maybe I don't want to know, like, people to know all of the behind the scenes. Guess what? Vulnerability with structure is not weakness. People do not trust leaders who seem invincible. They trust the ones who have been tested, not the perfect patties who are out there as if, hey, we all don't have the iceberg you see on top and then all the stuff that's happening underneath, right? There is a way to share, especially if you use this model. It will help to frame the real life is lifing in a way that's going to help you to connect. Okay? And I can preach about this one because I struggled with this a lot, especially as a people leader, feeling like, hey, it's going to be weak for me to show my vulnerabilities and my challenges and the things that I'm working through. A lot of times we don't want to talk about the things that we struggle with, right? But that is not a reason to avoid sharing your story or sharing appropriate stories in a proper format. Sometimes, or another thing that you may be saying, oh, I tried the storytelling thing. I downloaded something online or whatever the case. I tried and it didn't land. That may not be a story problem. That may be a structure problem. Because I can tell you, when any one of those elements is missing, the story is going to fall flat. And now you know why. So don't even think about, oh, I got to become a more effective storyteller. Think about, I'm being more effective at change, making this change happen and making it happen more efficiently and without all of the headache and the heartache that can come with change. Stories are truly your superpowers, especially when it comes to team performance or to any type of performance. You use this equation and you will see how much of a difference it will make. Because at the end of the day, management is truly, it's about change. Project management is about change. And change does create resistance. Stories build connection, and connection reduces resistance. Now, I'm a numbers person. This math is mathing to me. It's about change, and what can I do to resist, to reduce the resistance that change is going to bring up. And then when the resistance drops, synergy rises, work flows more smoothly, people move with you instead of against you, and not because what had to do or happened disappeared, but because the friction did. The spoonful of sugar that makes the medicine go down. Now, I do want to share with you a free download that I have, and I'm going to put it into the chat, which has a recap of all of these equations and also some exercises that you can work through as well. Now, also, for those of you who are AI enthusiasts, such as I am myself, actually, my last book that I wrote and released last year, my latest #1 bestseller was AI for Kingdom Authors. I am a huge proponent of using and utilizing and leveraging all of the resources that we have available to us. Because at the end of the day, we are called to be effective. We don't want to just be here going around the same mountain, not getting anything done. But for those of us who are very results focused, mission oriented, and impact focused, AI is an incredible tool to use. So this download is also going to include some AI prompts that you can use with the tool of your choice that can help you to really, embed this equation in some of your day-to-day tasks with some of the more challenging aspects that you may be having as it relates to leading your team, managing any type of process. Listen, I pop this thing sometimes in here to help me have a conversation with my husband. So it can be very, very useful. And also just want to share an update that these are the elements that I'm actually going to be talking about in my upcoming book, which is called Pass It On, and just the power of storytelling. Stories have changed my life with the stories that people have shared and the things that I have gleaned and I've taken away and the connections that have been made through people sharing their stories with me. The power of story is something that I would just forever be an advocate for. So I will, of course, share with Andrea so that she can share with you all when that book is available and released for those of you who may be interested. So this was the formal part of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening, and I am happy to take any questions.
Everyone, I want you to send some emotions in the chat or in your screen, some reactions to just show appreciation for Aisha's presentation. That was remarkable. It really set the framework on how wonderful storytelling can be and powerful it can be in our communication strategies with our teams, our coworkers, and just in life generally, because people, you have to establish trust for people to be able to communicate with you on a deeper level. And thank you so much for sharing the resource in the chat. That's available right now. You can download it. And can we have a few persons come off of mute and ask a few questions? We have about 29 minutes left in our session. I don't want to ask the first question, but I have about two questions.
Thank you so much, Aisha. It was a really good presentation, and I love how you said in the beginning you were keeping it real, and I like how you did that. You just use simple words, which, which, as you said, which made sense, makes the connection. Because we don't need to, because you're a very learned woman, I could tell, but you spoke as if you were speaking to a 5-year-old, which is how we need to learn. I have learned, and you did that well. So thank you so much for breaking it down and just being your real self. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Miss Karen. Such a pleasure. Thank you.
I'm going to ask something that I was asked about a year and a half ago. I was on a panel for the Pacific Northwest Software Quality Conference, and they had 5 of us women up on stage in a women's technology panel. And one of the questions that was asked is, how would have your career been different had you been male instead of female? I'm just curious because it's always a question that I find interesting.
You're asking me?
Yeah. What do you think?
How would my career have been different if I was male instead of female?
Yeah.
Oh, that's an interesting question. Um, I actually think that my career may not have taken the turn that it took. As interesting as that may sound, because I operated very much in my masculine for pretty much all of my career. When I decided to hang up the high heels after, my beauty pageant days, and it was like, listen, I want to have the most successful life with the least amount of friction as possible. And I got very, very strategic and tactical and analytical, no emotion involved, which is all like male traits. And I decided that I was going to go into the US military, which I did. And then I decided that it was time to come out of there, which I did. And I chose the profession of accounting. And not that I had any particular love for it, but I figured that it would give me the best paying job with the least amount of education. And so that's what I did. And I worked that career and I pushed myself to the top because not being at the top was just not acceptable for me. And I made a lot of sacrifices in my career. I was married at the time. I moved abroad, worked in different locations and different countries because, hey, that's what I needed to do to make it to the top of my career. And family life, I didn't have any children at that point, was like, hey, I gotta do what I gotta do for my career. But it was because when I became a mother, um, that, I would say that the softer side of me, which I just like cast away because I'm like, I got goals to achieve. Who has time to worry about purpose and what feels good? Like, I have goals to achieve. But that started to rise up in me. And, just bit by bit over time, where it's like, I want to have a little bit more meaning in what I do. I want to be more authentic to who it is that I'm called to be. And that started me on a path of who am I called to be? Well, let's maybe look at the person who made me. So that started that whole journey of that, which has led me to where I am now, which I'm like so much in my feminine. But if I was still a male, I don't see too many males on the bandwagon of like tapping into my purpose and who was God calling me to be. They're very much into, hey, I have a family to provide for. I got to do what I got to do. So I probably would have stayed in the path of, that corporate life and doing what I was doing, instead of taking the diversion to serve people in this way that I'm serving right now. But wow, what an interesting question. Never been asked that before.
Thanks.
You're so welcome.
Thanks for that question, Carol. That was very interesting. I don't know how I would respond if I was on a panel and someone asked me that question. I think that's where the power of storytelling comes in because you have to think of that response in such a creative way to not make it sound offensive to the person who's asking it because it can come across as a sexist question like, do you ask a man how would his career be different if he was a female? Like, I don't think that happens, right? So you have to be able to just quickly think on your feet, especially if you're sitting on a panel and somebody throws a question like that at you. That may not be the diplomatic response may not come surface to the top. You might have to
Right.
use the power of pause, put flash a fake smile,
Yes. No, it was
take
interesting.
yeah, take some deep breaths, and then okay, the world is watching. Let me be nice.
Yeah.
But that's a really powerful question, and I think sometimes as females we get put in the hot seat
Yeah.
in
There's
a
a
lot of
question
different
in the chat.
circumstances.
That's a very diplomatic answer.
Yeah, I think so too.
Mhm. Thank you for this presentation. You mentioned that we should not feel vulnerable about sharing our journey. However, to what extent do you recommend editing yourself to avoid oversharing, which could be counterproductive? Thank you so much for this question, Ms. Patura. If there was one question that I would say is commonly asked, it would be this. And this is where the framework is going to really help you because we want to always start with the end in mind. What is the connection that it is that we want to be making right now? And so of the elements in the framework, and I've uploaded a copy into the chat, the circumstances, the crown, the challenges, the cheerleader, the conviction, the crossover. All of those are going to be tied into what is that ultimate connection that we're trying to make. So if something is not 100% relevant to that connection, then this is where I say, take the meat and throw away the bones. A lot of times people get into the emotional aspects of I was already running late, and my daughters were crying and making a lot of noise. And, I already felt so frazzled because, I'm always the one who has to pick up these kids. And today of all days would have been the day where I would have needed my husband to pick up the kids, but he's always at work, and I feel like a single married mother. I mean, I could have gotten into all of those things, but they were not necessary or relevant to the whole point. What is the point of connection that I was trying to make? Hey, we're all entrepreneurs here that are juggling a lot, and the path of an entrepreneur, especially if you're a parent, is going to be full of a whole lot of surprises that are going to try to knock you off of your feet, and that can be very, very discouraging, especially in moments where your name and your brand and your presence is on the line. Now, if that was any other day, yeah, I'm sure that would have been annoying, but of all of the days when it's like, hey, I gotta get home and I gotta do my makeup and I gotta this, that, and the next thing, now it's squeezing into my time. So all of those other things were not that necessary to go into a whole huge backstory, right? What's relevant about the circumstances? You need to know enough of the circumstances to be like, oh, wow, okay, yeah, this was really like, oh my goodness. But what's the crown? The circumstances without the crown is like, it's just the landscape. Like where's the mountaintop? What's the point of it all? The point is, we have something to get to. This is not the time to have something unexpected to come up. We have something to get to where my presence, my peace being anchored is paramount. This is not the time for me to be frazzled, right? That's the crown. I want to show up and to represent myself and all of my fabulousness, not 50% of fabulousness, because I have this thing that's sitting on the back of my head, right? That's my crown. What are the challenges? I talked about the challenges. The challenges can be part of the circumstances. The challenges can be like I started feeling myself panic. I started to feel myself getting frazzled, right? What are the cheerleaders? Okay, them voices that are coming up inside. For you, it may be the voices inside. It could be somebody else helping. It depends on the situation and the circumstances, right? What is that conviction? Hey, this is a teaching moment. This is a teaching moment. This is a test. This is God saying, girl, you sure you ready to go to that next level? You sure you ready? Okay. You sure? Let me just give you a little test. And I decided to myself, I'm going to pass this test with an A. I'm going to pass with an A plus, right? And so it led me into that crossover. Usually, man, listen, I would have been rowing and making all kinds of noise. I would have been. But what is that crossover point? Hey, you not gonna get me caught that off guard. All things work together for those who are called for their good. You know how many accidents I pass on the road every day? How many things where it could have been that much worse? Okay, what is truly the worst that happened? I didn't get on 15 minutes before like I wanted to. I got on 2 or 3 minutes before. And now I had an extra juicy story to be able to tell to even hammer in my point. Sounds like a win to me.
It is.
So there's so much when you look at the end result, because, and this is, what's very, very clear. You always want to start with the end in mind. What type of connection do I want to make with this group of people or with this individual who is sitting or standing in the front of my face? So I said, this is a group. We're probably all entrepreneurial minded. We know how things can come. So this is my way to connect, to say, hold steady. You got this. If you're called for this, you're already equipped. Nothing is going to come and knock you off of your feet because of who you are and who lives in the inside of you. And you can stand and you're going to be okay. And you can get through it with an A plus as well. That's the whole point of my connection. So all of the other stuff, oh, my son's so irresponsible. I just row him out for this, to that, the next thing. I don't know why he waited till the last minute to even do these school projects anyway. That's not important. To you standing firm in your storm. That's the point of connection. And my whole point of the story is not just me standing back from a distance. Oh, stand strong in a storm. Stand strong in a storm. You know, Lord will never give you more than you can bear. Okay, you dismiss that right out of your head because it's like, nah, listen, you don't even know what the day that I've had or what I've had to deal with. This is where the story comes in and it brings connection. It brings connection. So the key is to wrap that answer up. Be very clear. What is your intent of the story? Because so many times people share a story where it's like, that's not even necessary. That's like having ice cream with a side of French fries. This is not necessary. We already had dinner. We're on to dessert. Where are you going with these French fries? Like just because they're there and you like them doesn't
Yeah.
mean that they need to be served right now.
And I'm so glad you mentioned that because that's actually my question. So while I'm gearing up my question, I am going to preempt and say, please come on camera, everyone, so we can take a quick snapshot for our social media page. If you want to come on camera, now is the time to come on. So my question is, before we take our quick photo, how do you deal with persons who start to communicate with you a story, but it seems like the story has no point and it's just a never ending, continuous, and you have to say, where are you going with this? It's like, what's the point of this conversation? What are you saying to me? Like,
Nah, this is where what Miss Carol asks, this is the part where I'm not all the way in my feminine because if I don't understand something, I'm gonna say. And if there's no point, I'm gonna say that too. Or I'm gonna say, please break this down to me. Or I'll be like, in a very respectful manner, of course. Um, but also appropriate for the situation where it's like, I will say I'm not gonna just let a story ramble or be there totally feeling uncomfortable. If somebody is sharing to me, especially if it's in a one-on-one capacity, now if it's in a group capacity, maybe their story isn't meant for me. It's meant for somebody else. Um, but in a one-on-one capacity, I'll be like, now hold on a second. Please just hold on a second. And listen, don't let this, and see, this is where having certain lines that, can maybe elicit a bit of a chuckle from people, but it's very strategic. Where I'll be like, now please don't let this beautiful face fool you. Don't forget, I'm 44 and I got 3 kids, a teenager and 2 toddlers. So Miss Andrea, please break this down to me. Just give me what it is that you're trying to say, because my brain ain't following right now. I'll just dive right in there like that, um, in a non-offensive way. But I don't look for extra stress on my brain because that's already coming in different ways, shapes, and forms in life as it is. So if I see that I'm going down a path where I'm like, huh, excuse you, I hop in to rescue myself out of that situation very quickly.
okay, thanks for that response, but don't look like we're gonna have anyone else join us on camera. So I'm gonna take a quick screenshot before more persons leave the session. And you do have a question in the chat. You could read that.
Yes. Okay. So Ms. Patura again, lastly, use of AI is so controversial nowadays. What boundaries of ethics do you recommend that we employ? Okay, so let me keep this brief because this is something that I am very, very passionate about. Not necessarily AI just itself, but the use of technology. Okay, so that's like saying using a stove is very controversial, or a microwave or a washing machine. I remember putting clothes out on the line to dry. But anyway, let me not belabor that point. Um, it all depends on what you're using AI for, and understanding any integrity issues that you may be utilizing it for, that you may need to disclose the fact that whatever you're producing has been done with the assistance of AI. So, for example, if you're in some type of certification program or whatever the case may be, and they have guidelines or ethics around the use of AI, you don't want to, disturb those or go against what those are. Now in other settings, whether that's for work or personal use or for business, I'm a very, 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 very strong proponent of the use of AI in appropriate ways. Okay, let me be clear on that. In appropriate ways, because AI is going to amplify, AI is going to accelerate what it is that you're doing. If you're utilizing it properly, AI is just like a microwave. My 3-year-old plays around with putting popcorn in the microwave and she presses all the buttons and we don't know until we smell like the house is burning down. So in the hands of the wrong person, you can get a whole big mess. But if you're utilizing it properly and with wisdom, it can be a very, 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 very powerful tool. Um, so that's really a very broad question, I would say. But to just wrap it up very simply and plainly, make sure that you're within whatever stated boundaries. If you're using it for some other purpose than your own purposes, never pass off something as, hey, this is hand sewn dress. If you knew that you sew it, made it using a sewing machine. Same thing with AI. For me, I fully disclose when I use AI with everything. But the great thing about it is I wrote the book on using AI for Kingdom authors. So that kind of helps my cause, photos, photo shoots, content generation, a whole host of things. And it's really helped to help me with the work that I do with my authors really have a world-class product that would be so expensive or so time consuming to achieve otherwise. So I hope that answers your question, but bottom line is I am a huge, huge proponent for working efficiently and effectively, and AI can be a very, very, very powerful tool when used properly. Thank you.
You got an okay sign, so I think you answered her question perfectly. So before we wrap up our session, I just want to quickly share my screen and say thank you so much to our presenter, Aisha Jackson, for giving us a very thought-provoking and powerful presentation on the hidden power of storytelling, which isn't that much hidden anymore after your presentation, because you gave us a powerful framework. You gave us real life examples. You have us really thinking about how it is that we can incorporate storytelling into every facet of our life to be better communicators. And for that, we want to give you the certificate of appreciation for presenting the hidden power of your story for team performance at our community of practice, BAPMC's virtual meetup on today's date of February 26, 2026. And to let you know that you are officially part of the BAPMC family. We welcome you back anytime and every time you feel as though you have something you want to share with us. We are open to having you be on our platform and sharing your knowledge with us, because this year I was very much astonished that our call for speakers got filled very quickly, and 80% of the speakers are actually Bahamians. This is the first time in BAPMC history that we have had such an influx of Bahamians wanting to present to this community. It always was loaded with foreigners, which we appreciate and we love our foreign counterparts and our associates, but it's really refreshing to see that our community is making an impact at home. And even if you're not at home, like in Aisha's case, she's not technically living in the Bahamas anymore, but she's a Bahamian through and through. So we appreciate you, coming on our platform and sharing your knowledge and your expertise with us. And I'm sure that this is not going to be our last interaction. This is the first of many, many more to come in the future as we find creative ways to not only use storytelling, but to use all of the talents that God has given us to make this world a better place. So I want to thank you on behalf of BAPMC, everyone on my team, and to let you know that we greatly appreciate you. We'll be sharing the certificate with you on social media, and also the screenshot that I took. Well, I know you want to take another screenshot because you were not smiling in that picture. So we will take our final screenshot and then we'll end the evening a few minutes early. I just want to remind everyone, I did drop the link for the Scrum Education Unit. So those of you who have certifications with Scrum Alliance, you can claim 1.5 hours of Scrum Education units, and the professional development units with PMI are self-reported, but if you need assistance, please reach out to me and I can help you with that. So Aisha, get one more smile and then we'll close the session. All right, great. So thank you everyone for joining us. We look forward to you coming again next month. We will put up our post about what next month's event is going to be all about. It may be in person, not hybrid. So for those of you who are overseas, we may have to just exclude you on next month's session, but we will be back with hybrid and virtual sessions in the months to come. So thank you so much for joining us, and please enjoy your weekend and be safe and be productive as always. Thank you.